My husband Derek was stirring his famous gumbo when his phone lit up. A message from his coworker. "I miss you." 3 words. That's all it took to destroy everything I believed about my marriage. But here's the thing. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. Instead, I picked up his phone and typed back, "Come over, my wife isn't home today." Then I sat down and waited for the doorbell to ring. If you want to know what happened next, subscribe to my channel and stay with me until the very end. Drop a comment telling me which city you're watching from. I want to see how far my story travels. Now let me tell you everything. I'm Maya Richardson, 55 years old, married for 28 years to the same man, or at least I thought I knew who that man was. That Friday evening started like any other. Derek was in the kitchen wearing the apron I bought him for our 25th anniversary, the one with "World's Best Husband" printed across the front. He was humming an old Marvin Gaye song, the same one he sang to me at our wedding reception in 1996. Back then, we had nothing but a tiny apartment in Decatur and big dreams. Now we lived in a 4-bedroom house in Buckhead, the kind of house I used to drive past as a young woman and wonder what kind of people lived inside. I was sitting at the kitchen island pretending to read a magazine, but my mind was somewhere else entirely. It had been somewhere else for weeks now. "Taste this baby." Derek turned around with a wooden spoon, his face lit up with that charming smile that had captured my heart 3 decades ago. "Tell me if it needs more cayenne." I leaned forward and tasted the gumbo. It was perfect like always. Derek could cook better than most restaurant chefs. He always said cooking for me was his love language. "It's good," I said. "Maybe a little more salt." He nodded and went back to the stove. That's when his phone buzzed on the counter. I glanced at the screen without thinking. It was a reflex after 28 years of marriage, the kind of casual intimacy that comes from sharing a life with someone. But what I saw made my blood turn to ice. The message was from someone saved as J. Finance Dept. 3 words glowed on the lock screen. "I miss you." My heart didn't skip a beat. It stopped completely. I looked at Derek's back. He was still stirring the pot, still humming that Marvin Gaye song, completely unaware that I had just read something that was about to change everything. Now a younger woman might have screamed. She might have thrown that phone at his head and demanded answers. But I'm 55 years old. I've survived raising 3 children, burying both my parents, beating breast cancer in 2019, and navigating a career in corporate America as a black woman in the 1980s and 90s. I don't do hysterics. I do strategy. I took a deep breath and made a decision that would alter the course of my entire life. I picked up Derek's phone. The passcode was our anniversary date, June 15th, 1996. The irony wasn't lost on me. He used the most sacred date of our marriage to hide his betrayal. The phone unlocked. I saw the message sitting there unread, waiting for him. "I miss you." My fingers moved before my brain could stop them. I typed a response. "Come over tonight. Maya went to visit her sister in Savannah. Won't be back until Sunday." I watched the blue check marks appear. Message delivered. Message read. 3 dots appeared. She was typing. "Really, I'll be there by 8. Can't wait to see you." I screenshot the conversation, sent it to my own phone, deleted the evidence from Derek's device, and placed the phone back exactly where it was, all in under 60 seconds. Then I sat back down and picked up my magazine. "Dinner's almost ready," Derek announced, carrying 2 steaming bowls to the table. "I made it extra spicy, just how you like it." I smiled at him. 28 years of marriage had taught me how to smile when my heart was breaking. "Smells wonderful, honey." We ate together at the table where we had shared thousands of meals. Derek talked about his day at the bank where he worked as a senior loan officer. He talked about a difficult client, a new policy from corporate, the retirement party for his colleague Jim next month. Normal things, husband things, all while knowing that in less than 2 hours his mistress would be standing at our front door. I pushed the food around my plate, unable to swallow more than a few bites. Every word out of his mouth sounded like a lie now. How long had this been going on? How many times had he sat across from me at this very table, fresh from another woman's arms, telling me about his day like nothing was wrong? "You okay, Maya? You're not eating much." "Just tired," I said. "Long week at work." Derek reached across the table and took my hand. His touch felt different now, contaminated. "Why don't you go relax on the couch? I'll clean up." I nodded and retreated to the living room. But I didn't relax. I couldn't. Instead, I sat on the edge of the sofa, my eyes fixed on the front door, counting down the minutes until everything exploded. At exactly 7:58 p.m., the doorbell rang. Derek was in the kitchen loading the dishwasher. I heard the ceramic plates rattle as his hands went still. "Who could that be?" he called out. There was something in his voice, a tremor, a crack in his composure. "I'll get it," I said. I stood up and walked to the door. Each step felt like I was walking toward a cliff edge, but I didn't hesitate. 28 years of trust had been shattered by 3 little words. Now it was time for the truth to come knocking. I opened the door. She was younger than I expected, much younger. Maybe 30 at most, which meant she was younger than my oldest daughter. She was pretty in that fresh-faced way that made me feel every single one of my 55 years. She was wearing a tight red dress and holding a bottle of wine, the expensive kind Derek used to buy for me on special occasions. When she saw me standing there, her face went through about 6 different expressions in 2 seconds. Surprise, confusion, recognition, terror, and finally the unmistakable look of a woman who knows she has been caught. "Mrs. Thompson," she stammered. Her voice was high and thin, like a child who had been caught stealing cookies. "I thought you were... Derek said you were..." "In Savannah," I finished for her, "visiting my sister." She nodded, her eyes darting past me, looking for Derek, looking for escape, looking for anything that wasn't my face staring her down. "Funny thing about that," I said, keeping my voice perfectly calm, "I don't have a sister in Savannah. I don't have a sister at all. Derek knows that. He's known that for 28 years. The bottle of wine began to shake in her hands. "Maya, who is it?" Derek's voice came from behind me. Then I heard his footsteps, then silence, as he reached the foyer and saw what was waiting for him. I didn't turn around. I kept my eyes locked on the young woman's face as I spoke. "Derek, honey, we have a visitor. Your friend from the finance department came to see you. Jasmine, isn't it? Why don't you come inside?" Nobody moved. The silence stretched between the 3 of us like a wire about to snap. "Come in," I repeated, stepping aside. "I insist." Jasmine looked at Derek. He looked at her. Some unspoken communication passed between them, the kind of silent language that only develops between people who have spent time together, intimate time, time they had stolen from my marriage. "Maya, I can explain," Derek started. "I'm sure you can. But first, let's all sit down like civilized adults. Jasmine, please. You came all this way. The least I can do is offer you some hospitality." Jasmine stepped inside like a woman walking to her own execution, which in a way she was. Derek closed the door behind her and I saw him wipe his forehead with the back of his hand. He was sweating, even though I kept the house at 68 degrees. I led them both into the living room. Derek took his usual spot on the leather recliner. Jasmine perched on the edge of the sofa, as far from both of us as possible. I remained standing. "So," I said, clasping my hands in front of me, "how long?" Neither of them answered. I asked a question. "How long has this been going on?" Derek found his voice first. "Maya, baby, please. It's not what you think. Not what I think a woman 25 years younger than me shows up at my house on a Friday night with a bottle of wine expecting to find me gone, and it's not what I think. Tell me, Derek, what exactly am I supposed to think?" He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. I turned to Jasmine. "What about you? You seem like a smart girl. You work in finance, so you must be good with numbers. Can you count for me? How many months? How many hotel rooms? How many lies?" Jasmine's lower lip began to tremble. "Mrs. Thompson, I'm so sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen." "You never meant for it to happen. Did you trip and fall into my husband's bed? Did the wind blow you into his car for those lunch dates? Did gravity pull you toward him at the office Christmas party?" "Maya, stop," Derek said. "Don't take this out on her. If you want to be angry at someone, be angry at me." I laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. "Oh, don't worry, Derek. I have plenty of anger for both of you. but I find it interesting that you're protecting her, defending her. Makes me wonder just how deep this goes." I walked over to the coffee table and picked up my phone. Derek watched me with growing panic. "What are you doing?" "Remember last month when you told me you had to work late on the Henderson account?" "Let me check my calendar. Oh yes, here it is, October 15th. You said you wouldn't be home until midnight." I pulled up a photo on my phone and showed it to them both. It was a screenshot of Derek's credit card statement, a charge at the Ritz-Carlton downtown for $487. Interesting that the Henderson account required a king suite at a 4-star hotel. Derek's face went gray. "And here's another one. September 22nd, a jewelry purchase from Tiffany's for $2,300. I never received any jewelry in September, Derek. My birthday is in March. Our anniversary is in June. So who was that gift for?" Jasmine's hand instinctively went to her neck, where a delicate gold necklace rested against her collarbone. She caught herself and dropped her hand, but it was too late. I had seen. "That's a beautiful necklace," I said. "Tiffany's." She didn't answer, but she didn't need to. 28 years, I said, and for the first time my voice cracked, just a little. 28 years I gave you, Derek. I was 27 years old when I married you. I had my whole life ahead of me. I could have done anything, been anything, gone anywhere. But I chose you. I chose us. I put your career first when you were climbing the ladder at the bank. I raised our 3 children practically alone because you were always working late. I held your hand when your mother died. I nursed you back to health after your heart surgery in 2017. I thought we were partners. I thought we were a team. Derek stood up and reached for me. We are a team, Maya. This thing with Jasmine, it was a mistake, a terrible mistake, but it doesn't change how I feel about you. I stepped back out of his reach. How you feel about me? Let me tell you how you feel about me, Derek. You feel like I'm old. You feel like I'm boring. You feel like I don't excite you anymore the way I did when I was 27 with my whole life ahead of me. So you found someone who reminds you of what I used to be. Someone young and fresh and impressed by your money and your position. Someone who makes you feel like you're still that ambitious young man I fell in love with instead of a 58-year-old man with gray hair and a bad knee. That's not true, Derek protested, but his voice was weak. Isn't it? Look at her, Derek. Really look at her. She's not even 40. She's closer in age to our daughter Rachel than she is to you. What do you two even talk about? She doesn't remember the Challenger explosion or the fall of the Berlin Wall. She was in elementary school when 9/11 happened. She's never watched a movie on VHS or dialed a rotary phone. Your entire shared history is built on lies and hotel rooms. Jasmine stood up suddenly. I should go. Sit down. My voice was sharp enough to cut glass. Jasmine sat. You don't get to walk away from this, I said. You inserted yourself into my marriage, my home, my life. You knew he was married. You knew he had children. You saw the family photos on his desk at work. You came to our house knowing I was supposed to be gone. You don't get to run away now that it's gotten uncomfortable. Maya, please, Derek said. Let her leave. This is between us. No, Derek. This is between all 3 of us. She made that choice when she decided my husband was worth pursuing. Now she gets to sit here and face the consequences. I walked over to the bar cart in the corner of the room and poured myself a glass of bourbon. I needed something to steady my hands. I'm going to ask you both some questions, I said, turning back to face them. And I want honest answers. After 28 years, I think I've earned that much. Neither of them spoke. Derek, do you love her? The question hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. Maya, it's a simple question. Yes or no? Do you love her? Derek looked at Jasmine. She looked at him. I watched them both watching each other, and in that moment, I saw everything I needed to see. You don't know, I said. After all these months, after all those hotel rooms and stolen lunches and secret messages, you don't even know if you love her. That's almost worse than if you did. I love you, Maya. I've always loved you. But you're not in love with me anymore. There's a difference, Derek. We've been married long enough for you to know that. I took a long sip of my bourbon and sat down in the armchair across from the sofa. My legs were tired. My heart was tired. My whole soul was tired. "Here's what's going to happen," I said. "Tomorrow morning I'm calling Nicole Harris. You remember Nicole, don't you, Derek? My roommate from college, the one who became a divorce attorney. She handles these cases all the time. Cheating husbands, prenuptial violations, asset protection. She's very good at her job." Derek's face went white. "Maya, you can't be serious. After everything we've built together, you're going to throw it all away because of one mistake." "One mistake, Derek. This wasn't a mistake. A mistake is forgetting to take out the trash. A mistake is missing an anniversary dinner. This was a choice, a series of choices made over and over again every single day to betray me. Every time you texted her, you chose her over me. Every time you booked that hotel room, you chose her over me. Every time you looked me in the eye and lied about where you'd been, you chose her over me. This wasn't one mistake. This was 1,000 mistakes, and each one was a knife in my back." Jasmine finally spoke up. "Mrs. Thompson, I know you don't want to hear this from me, but I truly am sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. Derek told me. He told me things were difficult between you two. He said you were more like roommates than husband and wife. I thought..." "You thought what?" "That you were saving him from an unhappy marriage. That you were the solution to his problems." Let me tell you something, Jasmine. I've seen women like you come and go throughout Derek's career. The young assistants, the ambitious analysts, the pretty faces at the office parties. You're not special. You're just the first one stupid enough to get caught. "That's not fair," Jasmine said, and there was a flash of defiance in her eyes. "Fair? You want to talk to me about fair? You've been sleeping with my husband for 6 months a year, and you want to lecture me about fairness?" "It was 8 months, Derek said quietly. The number hit me like a physical blow. 8 months, 240 days of deception. 8 months of dinners across this very table, of sleeping beside me in our bed, of kissing me goodbye in the morning and going straight to her. 8 months, I repeated, and I never knew. Not once did I suspect. What does that say about me, about us? "It says you trusted me," Derek said, "and I betrayed that trust. I know that. I know I can never take back what I've done. But Maya, please don't make any decisions tonight. Let's take some time. Let's talk about this. We can see a counselor work through this together. 28 years of marriage deserves more than one conversation." Does it really? Because the way I see it, you made a decision about our marriage 8 months ago. You decided it wasn't worth protecting. You decided I wasn't worth being faithful to. Now I get to make a decision too. I finished my bourbon and set the glass down on the table. "Jasmine, I want you to leave now, and I want you to understand something very clearly. If I ever see you near my husband again, if I hear that you've called him or texted him or so much as looked at him across a crowded room, I will make sure that everyone at that bank knows exactly what kind of woman you are. Your career, your reputation, everything you've worked for it will all disappear faster than you can say, 'I'm sorry.' Do we understand each other?" Jasmine nodded frantically. She grabbed her purse and practically ran to the front door. I heard it slam behind her, and then the sound of her car peeling out of the driveway. Derek and I were alone. "Maya," he said, "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know I don't deserve anything from you, but please don't destroy everything we've built. Think about the children. Think about the grandchildren. Our children are adults, Derek. They'll survive, and they deserve to know the truth about their father. You wouldn't. Watch me." I stood up and walked toward the bedroom. Derek followed me. "Where are you going?" "To pack a bag. I'm going to Nicole's tonight. Tomorrow we'll start discussing the terms of our divorce." "Maya, please, please don't do this." I stopped at the bedroom door and turned to face him. "You know what the worst part is, Derek? It's not the affair. It's not the lies. It's not even the money you spent on her money that should have been ours. The worst part is that I actually believed you. When you told me you loved me this morning, I believed you. When you made me that gumbo tonight, I thought it was because you wanted to do something nice for your wife. But it wasn't, was it? You were just going through the motions, playing a role, all while counting down the minutes until you could see her again." Derek's eyes filled with tears. That's not true. I do love you. I've always loved you. Maybe. But you don't love me enough. And after 28 years, enough is all I have left to give. I walked into our bedroom and pulled a suitcase from the closet, the same suitcase we used for our 25th anniversary trip to Paris. I began filling it with clothes, toiletries, the essentials I would need for the days ahead. Derek stood in the doorway watching me, saying nothing. The fight had gone out of him. He looked smaller somehow, diminished, like the revelation of his sins had physically shrunk him. When I finished packing, I zipped the suitcase closed and wheeled it past him into the hallway. "I'll call you tomorrow to discuss logistics," I said. "Don't try to contact me tonight." "Maya." "What?" "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." Oh, I looked at my husband of 28 years, the man who had promised to love, honor, and cherish me until death do us part, the man who had held my hand in the delivery room 3 times, who had danced with me at our daughter's weddings, who had been beside me through every triumph and tragedy of our adult lives. "I know you are," I said, "but sorry doesn't fix this. Sorry doesn't undo 8 months of betrayal. Sorry doesn't give me back the trust you stole from me." I opened the front door and stepped out into the night. The autumn air was cool against my face, and I realized I was crying. When had that started, I didn't know. I loaded my suitcase into the trunk of my car and slid behind the wheel. Through the front window of our house, I could see Derek standing in the living room, his hands hanging at his sides, watching me leave. I started the engine and pulled out of the driveway. 28 years of marriage. 3 words on a phone screen. One decision that would change everything. As I drove through the quiet streets of Buckhead toward Nicole's apartment in Midtown, I thought about what the future held. Divorce lawyers, property divisions, explaining to our children why their parents' marriage had ended, starting over at 55 years old alone for the first time in nearly 3 decades. It was terrifying. But it was also, in a strange way, liberating. For 28 years, I had built my life around Derek Thompson. His career, his needs, his happiness. I had subordinated my own dreams, my own ambitions, my own desires to the altar of our marriage. And now that marriage was over. The question was, who was Maya Richardson without Derek Thompson? I didn't know the answer yet, but I was about to find out. Nicole was waiting for me when I arrived. She took one look at my face, opened her arms, and held me while I cried. She didn't ask questions. She didn't offer advice. She just let me fall apart in the safety of her friendship. Later, when the tears had subsided and we were sitting on her couch with cups of tea, I told her everything. The message, the trap Jasmine's arrival, the confrontation with Derek. Nicole listened without interrupting her lawyer's mind, already cataloging evidence and building a case. When I finished, she took my hands in hers. "Maya, I want you to listen to me very carefully. What Derek did to you is unforgivable, but you handled it with more grace and dignity than most people could manage. You didn't scream. You didn't throw things. You didn't give him the satisfaction of seeing you fall apart. You stayed in control, and that is going to serve you very well in the days ahead." "What do you mean?" "I mean that we are going to make sure you walk away from this marriage with everything you deserve. The house, the retirement accounts, half of everything he's accumulated over 28 years of marriage. Georgia is an equitable distribution state, which means the court will divide your assets fairly. And given what Derek has done, given the evidence you've gathered, I think we can make a very strong case for you to receive the lion's share." "I don't care about the money, Nicole." "I know you don't, but you should, because money represents options. It represents freedom. It represents the ability to build whatever kind of life you want without depending on anyone else. You've spent 28 years putting Derek first. Now it's time to put yourself first." I looked at my oldest friend, this woman who had known me since we were both idealistic college students with our whole lives ahead of us. She had seen me through first loves and first heartbreaks, through wedding planning and new motherhood, through career changes and family dramas. And now she was going to see me through this. "Okay," I said. "What do we do first?" Nicole smiled. It was the smile of a woman who was very, very good at her job. "First we document everything. Then we strategize. And then, Maya, we win." That night, lying on the pull-out couch in Nicole's spare room, I stared at the ceiling and thought about the journey ahead. It would be hard. There would be more tears, more anger, more moments of doubt and despair. But there would also be strength I didn't know I had, courage I had never needed to find before, and eventually on the other side of all that pain, there would be peace. I was 55 years old, my marriage was over, my life as I knew it had ended, but maybe, just maybe, that meant a new life was about to begin. The next morning came too fast. I woke up on Nicole's pull-out couch with swollen eyes and a headache that pounded behind my temples like a drum. For one blissful second, I forgot where I was. Then it all came rushing back. The text message, Jasmine at my door, Derek's face when he realized the trap I had set, the drive through dark streets with tears blurring my vision. I reached for my phone on the nightstand. 17 missed calls from Derek. 23 text messages. I scrolled through them without reading, watching the timestamps progress through the night. 11:47 p.m., 1:23 a.m., 3:15 a.m., 4:52 a.m. He hadn't slept either. Nicole appeared in the doorway with 2 cups of coffee. She was already dressed in a sharp navy blazer, her lawyer uniform ready for battle. "How are you feeling?" "Like I've been hit by a truck." She handed me a cup and sat down on the edge of the bed. "Derek called my office this morning, left 3 voicemails before I even got there." "What did he say?" "That he needs to talk to you, that you're making a mistake, that 28 years shouldn't end like this." Nicole took a sip of her coffee. "Same thing every cheating husband says when they get caught." I wrapped my hands around the warm mug and stared into the dark liquid. "Did he sound sincere?" "Maya, they always sound sincere. That's how they got away with it for so long in the first place." She was right, of course. Derek had spent 8 months lying to my face with complete conviction. Why would his apologies be any different? My phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't Derek. It was my daughter, Rachel. "Mom, Dad just called me. What's going on? He said you left last night and won't answer his calls. Are you okay?" I closed my eyes. I had hoped for at least a few days before the children found out. But Derek had already started his campaign, probably trying to control the narrative before I could tell my side. "I need to call Rachel back," I told Nicole. "And Marcus and Jennifer too. They deserve to hear this from me. Do you want me to give you some privacy?" "No, stay. I might need the support." I dialed Rachel's number. She answered on the first ring. "Mom, what's happening?" Dad sounded really upset. "Rachel, honey, I need you to listen to me, and then I need you to call your brother and sister so we can all talk together. Can you do that?" "You're scaring me." "I know, baby. I'm sorry, but this is important." 20 minutes later, I was on a video call with all 3 of my children. Rachel, 32, a pediatrician in Charlotte. Marcus, 29, an engineer in Dallas. Jennifer, 26, finishing her MBA in Chicago. They stared at me through their phone screens with worried eyes, and I felt my heart break all over again. "Your father and I are getting a divorce." The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus spoke first. "What? Why, what happened?" "I found out last night that your father has been having an affair for 8 months with a woman from his office." "No." Rachel shook her head. "No, that can't be right. Dad would never do that." "I wish that were true, sweetheart. But I saw the messages myself, and I met the woman. She came to our house last night expecting to find me gone." "Oh my God." Jennifer's hand covered her mouth. "Mom, I'm so sorry." "This has to be a mistake," Rachel insisted. "Dad loves you. He's always loved you. There must be some explanation." "There's no mistake, Rachel. Your father admitted everything. 8 months of hotel rooms and secret dinners and lies. 8 months of coming home to me after being with another woman." Marcus's jaw tightened. "Who is she?" "Her name is Jasmine. She works in his department. She's 30 years old." 30? Jennifer's voice cracked. "She's younger than Rachel." "I know." Rachel was crying now. "I can't believe this. I can't believe he would do this to you, to us, to our family." "I'm telling you this because you deserve to know the truth. Your father may try to spin this differently. He may try to minimize what he did or make excuses. I want you to know the facts before he has a chance to manipulate them." "What are you going to do?" Marcus asked. "I'm filing for divorce. My friend Nicole is handling the case. I'm staying with her until I figure out my next steps." "Do you need us to come home?" Jennifer asked. I can get on a plane tonight. No, honey, stay in school. There's nothing you can do here except worry. I'll be okay. I'm hurt and I'm angry, but I'm going to be okay. We talked for another hour. There were more tears, more questions, more expressions of disbelief and outrage. By the end of the call, I was emotionally drained, but I also felt something I hadn't expected. Supported. My children had rallied around me without hesitation. They hadn't made excuses for their father or tried to convince me to give him another chance. They had simply loved me. After I hung up, Nicole handed me a fresh cup of coffee. That was hard. The hardest thing I've ever done. It's going to get harder before it gets easier, but you're doing the right thing. I nodded, even though part of me wasn't sure what the right thing was anymore. 24 hours ago, I knew exactly who I was. Maya Richardson Thompson, wife, mother, grandmother, senior marketing director at one of Atlanta's largest firms. My identity was built on foundations I thought were solid. Now those foundations had crumbled, and I was standing in the rubble trying to figure out what to salvage. Nicole's phone rang. She glanced at the screen and frowned. It's Derek again. Don't answer. I have to. I'm your attorney now. Legally, he should be communicating through me, not directly to you. She picked up the call and put it on speaker. Derek, this is Nicole Harris. I'm representing Maya in this matter. From this point forward, all communication should go through my office. Nicole, please. Derek's voice sounded ragged, like he had been crying. I just need to talk to her. 5 minutes, that's all I'm asking. That's not possible right now. You don't understand. I love her. I made a terrible mistake, but I love her. 28 years of marriage has to count for something. Nicole's expression remained professionally neutral. If you want to discuss the terms of the divorce, you're welcome to hire an attorney and have them contact me. Otherwise, I'm going to ask you to stop calling. Nicole, we've known each other for 30 years. You were at our wedding. Please, just let me talk to her. I shook my head firmly. She doesn't want to talk to you right now, Derek. I suggest you respect that. This is insane. She's my wife. You can't keep me from my own wife. Actually, I can. And if you continue to harass her, I'll file for a restraining order. Do you understand? The line went silent for a long moment. Then Derek spoke again, his voice cold. Fine. Tell Maya that I'll see her in court, and tell her that she's making the biggest mistake of her life. He hung up. Nicole set down the phone and looked at me. Well, that could have gone better. He's scared. When Derek gets scared, he gets angry. Good. Scared and angry people make mistakes, and mistakes give us leverage. I spent the next 3 days at Nicole's apartment, slowly piecing together the evidence of Derek's betrayal. Credit card statements going back a year, phone records that showed hundreds of calls and texts to Jasmine's number, hotel receipts, restaurant bills, jewelry purchases. Each document was another nail in the coffin of my marriage. But the most damaging evidence came from an unexpected source. On Tuesday afternoon, my phone rang with an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, assuming it was Derek calling from a different line. But something made me pick up. Mrs. Thompson, this is Jasmine Cole. I nearly dropped the phone. What do you want? Please don't hang up. I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but there's something you need to know. I think I know quite enough, don't you? No, you don't. And I think if you did, it might change things. Against my better judgment, I stayed on the line. I'm listening. I'm not the first one. The words hung in the air between us. What do you mean? I mean, I'm not the first woman Derek has had an affair with. There was someone before me. Her name was Patricia. She worked in the legal department until about 2 years ago. They were together for almost a year before she transferred to another branch. My stomach dropped. How do you know this? Patricia warned me when Derek first started showing interest. She told me he was charming but dangerous, that he promised her he would leave his wife, and then when she started pushing for commitment, he got her transferred out of the office. She said I should stay away from him. But you didn't. No, I thought it would be different with me. I thought I was special. Jasmine laughed bitterly. I was an idiot. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to know the truth, the whole truth. And because I found out this morning that Derek has been seeing someone else behind my back too. Another woman from the Houston office. Her name is Denise. He's been flying down there once a month for meetings that don't exist. I sank onto the couch, my legs unable to hold me. He's been cheating on both of us. Yes, for the last 3 months at least. Maybe longer. Why should I believe you? This could be some kind of trick. I'll send you the evidence. Flight records, hotel receipts, text messages. I had access to his work calendar. I have everything. Why would you help me? I humiliated you in my living room. You did what any woman would do, and honestly, I deserved it. I knew he was married. I knew he had a family. I told myself it didn't matter because he was going to leave you anyway. But he was never going to leave you, was he? He was just going to keep collecting women like trophies while you sat at home cooking his dinner and washing his clothes. I didn't know what to say. This young woman, this person I had despised with every fiber of my being, was handing me the ammunition I needed to destroy Derek in court. Send me everything, I finally said. Every receipt, every message, every piece of evidence you have. I will. And Mrs. Thompson, I really am sorry. Not because I got caught, but because I participated in hurting you. You didn't deserve any of this. She hung up before I could respond. An hour later, my email inbox exploded with attachments, flight itineraries, hotel confirmations, screenshots of text conversations with a woman named Denise that made my exchanges with Jasmine look tame by comparison. Derek had been living a triple life, juggling his wife and 2 mistresses like a circus performer spinning plates. I forwarded everything to Nicole. Her response came 10 minutes later. This changes everything. Meet me at my office in an hour. When I arrived at Nicole's law firm, she was waiting in the conference room with a stack of papers spread across the table. Sit down, she said. We need to talk strategy. What does all this mean for the divorce? It means we have enough evidence to prove a pattern of infidelity, not just one affair, but multiple affairs spanning years. Under Georgia law, this qualifies as cruel treatment, which is one of the grounds for fault divorce. What's the difference between fault and no-fault divorce? In a no-fault divorce, the court divides assets equitably without considering who was to blame for the marriage ending. But in a fault divorce, the court can take the guilty party's conduct into account when dividing property. Given what Derek has done, I think we can make a strong case for you to receive significantly more than 50%. How much more to potentially 60 to 70% of all marital assets, plus alimony. Derek makes substantially more than you do. The court will want to ensure you can maintain a similar standard of living after the divorce. I thought about the house in Buckhead, the retirement accounts, the investment portfolio Derek had built over 3 decades. All of it suddenly felt tainted. I don't want his money. Maya, listen to me. You contributed to that money. You sacrificed career opportunities to support his advancement. You raised 3 children largely on your own while he was building his career and apparently sleeping with half of Atlanta. That money is as much yours as it is his. It feels wrong, like I'm profiting from his betrayal. You're not profiting. You're claiming what's rightfully yours. There's a difference. Before I could respond, Nicole's assistant knocked on the door. Sorry to interrupt, but there's a man in the lobby demanding to see Mrs. Thompson. He says he's her husband. Nicole and I exchanged glances. Do you want me to call security? No, I said, surprising myself. Let him in. Nicole raised an eyebrow. Are you sure? I need to look him in the eye. I need him to see that I'm not afraid of him. A moment later, Derek appeared in the doorway. He looked terrible. Unshaven, wrinkled clothes, dark circles under his eyes. The polished, successful banker had been replaced by a man coming apart at the seams. Maya. He took a step toward me. Stop right there. I held up my hand. You can say whatever you came to say from where you are. I made a mistake. Mistakes. I know that. But please, baby, don't throw away everything we've built together. We can work through this. We can go to counseling. We can rebuild. Can we? Can we rebuild the trust you spent years destroying? Can we rebuild the respect I used to have for you? Can we rebuild the image of my husband as an honest man? I know I hurt you. I know I have a lot to make up for, but I love you, Maya. I've always loved you. You love me. I stood up, my voice rising. You love me? Let me tell you what love looks like, Derek. Love is coming home to the same woman every night for 28 years. Love is keeping your promises. Love is being honest even when it's hard. What you did isn't love. What you did is betrayal. What you did is humiliation. What you did is treating me like I'm disposable, like our marriage was just something to pass the time until something better came along. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? Explain it to me. Explain Patricia from the legal department. Explain Jasmine from finance. Explain Denise from the Houston office. Derek's face went white. How do you know about... It doesn't matter how I know. What matters is that I do. 3 women, Derek. 3 women that I know of. How many more were there? How many other lies have you told me over the years? He couldn't answer. His mouth opened and closed like a fish, gasping for air. I'll tell you something else I know, I continued. I know about the money you've been hiding, the offshore account in the Caymans, the condo you bought in Miami that you told me was a timeshare. I know about all of it. This wasn't entirely true. I knew about the affairs, but the financial details were an educated guess based on Derek's behavior over the years. But from the look on his face, I had hit the mark. How did you... It doesn't matter. What matters is that when this goes to court, everything is going to come out. Every lie, every affair, every dollar you tried to hide. The judge is going to see exactly who you are, Derek. And so will our children, and so will everyone at your precious bank. You wouldn't do that to me. Watch me. Derek looked from me to Nicole and back again. For the first time since I had known him, he looked truly afraid. What do you want? He asked quietly. What will it take to make this go away? Go away. Derek, this isn't going to go away. You can't write a check and make 28 years of betrayal disappear. You can't sweet-talk your way out of this like you do with your clients and your mistresses. This is real. This is happening. And there's nothing you can do to stop it. Everyone has a price. Not me. Not anymore. He stared at me for a long moment, and I saw something shift behind his eyes. The desperation faded, replaced by something harder, colder. Fine, he said, if that's how you want to play it. But don't think for a second that I'm going to make this easy for you. I have lawyers too, good ones. And I know things about you that you might not want coming out in court. Like what? Like the fact that you had your own little flirtation back in 2015. Remember Robert from your office, the one you were always having lunch with, always staying late to work on projects together? Robert was my colleague, my friend, nothing more. Maybe, maybe not, but it's going to look suspicious when my lawyers start digging. 2 can play at this game, Maya. Nicole stepped forward. I think we're done here. Derek, you need to leave before I call security. He ignored her, keeping his eyes locked on mine. I built everything we have. The house, the investments, the retirement accounts. You think you're entitled to half of that? Think again. By the time my lawyers are done, you'll be lucky to walk away with the clothes on your back. Something inside me snapped. 28 years of being the supportive wife, of biting my tongue, of smoothing things over, of putting his needs before my own. All of it came pouring out in a single moment of pure righteous fury. You built everything. Let me tell you what I built, Derek. I built a home. I raised 3 children who turned out to be decent human beings, despite having an absentee father. I managed the household budget so carefully that we never missed a payment, even when you were blowing money on jewelry for your mistresses. I hosted your work dinners and charmed your bosses and made you look good at every company event for 3 decades. I put my own career on hold twice so you could chase promotions. I was by your side through every success and every failure, and this is how you repay me, by threatening me, by trying to scare me into giving up what's mine. I stepped closer to him, close enough to see the fear flickering in his eyes. You don't scare me anymore, Derek. You're not the powerful man you think you are. You're a liar and a cheat and a fraud. And when this is over, everyone is going to know it. Derek backed toward the door. The confident bravado he had walked in with was gone, replaced by the expression of a man who had just realized he had severely underestimated his opponent. "You'll regret this," he said. But his voice shook when he said it. "The only thing I regret is wasting 28 years on you. Now get out." He left without another word. When the door closed behind him, Nicole let out a low whistle. "Well, that was something." "I don't know where that came from." "I do. That was 28 years of suppressed anger finally finding a voice, and it was magnificent." I sat back down, suddenly exhausted. The adrenaline that had fueled my outburst was draining away, leaving me hollow. "Did I make things worse?" "No, you put him on notice. He came in here expecting to intimidate you into backing down. Instead, he left knowing that you're not going to be pushed around. That's important." "What happens now?" "Now we prepare for war. Derek's going to hire the most expensive lawyers he can find. He's going to try to drag this out, make it as painful as possible, hope you'll get tired and settle for less than you deserve. We need to be ready for that." "How do we get ready?" Nicole smiled. "Leave that to me. I've been doing this for 20 years. Men like Derek think they can bully their way through a divorce the same way they bully their way through business. They're wrong. The law doesn't care how charming you are or how much money you make. The law cares about evidence, and thanks to your friend Jasmine, we have plenty of that." Over the next 2 weeks, Nicole assembled a team: forensic accountants to trace Derek's hidden assets, private investigators to document his pattern of infidelity, expert witnesses who could testify about the emotional and financial impact of long-term spousal betrayal. It was like watching a general prepare for battle, and Nicole was clearly in her element. Meanwhile, I tried to rebuild some semblance of a normal life. I went back to work grateful for the distraction of deadlines and meetings. I talked to my children every night, reassuring them that I was okay, even when I wasn't sure that was true. I started seeing a therapist, a kind woman named Dr. Patterson, who helped me process the tsunami of emotions that threatened to drown me every day. Derek hired a high-powered attorney named Vincent Crawford, a man known for his aggressive tactics in high-asset divorces. The first shot across the bow came in the form of a motion to freeze all joint accounts pending the divorce settlement. Nicole countered with a motion of her own, citing Derek's history of financial deception and requesting that the court appoint a neutral party to oversee all marital assets. The battle lines were drawn. The war had begun. But somewhere in the middle of all the legal maneuvering and emotional turmoil, something unexpected happened. I started to find myself again. It began with small things: cooking meals I actually enjoyed instead of Derek's preferred dishes, watching movies he would have hated, buying flowers for my apartment without having to justify the expense. For the first time in nearly 3 decades, I was making choices based solely on what I wanted without considering how they would affect someone else. It was terrifying and exhilarating, and sometimes in quiet moments, almost hopeful. One evening, about 3 weeks after leaving Derek, I was sitting on Nicole's balcony watching the sunset over the Atlanta skyline. My phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer. "Mom, are you happy?" Such a simple question, such a complicated answer. I thought about it for a long moment before typing my response. "I'm getting there, baby. For the first time in a long time, I think I'm actually getting there." And I meant it. The road ahead was long and uncertain, but I was no longer afraid to walk it alone. The calm I had started to feel shattered exactly 6 weeks after I left Derek. It happened on a Wednesday morning when Nicole called me into her office with a voice that told me something was very wrong. "Sit down, Maya. We have a problem." I sat. My hands were already trembling. "Derek's attorney filed a motion this morning. They're claiming that you were the one who committed adultery, not him. They're naming Robert Chen as your alleged lover and demanding that the court consider this when dividing assets." The room tilted. "That's insane. Robert and I never had an affair. We were colleagues, friends, nothing more." "I believe you, but Derek's team has compiled a list of evidence: lunch receipts, late-night emails, photographs of the two of you leaving the office together. They're building a narrative, Maya, and in court, narratives matter as much as truth. This is revenge, pure and simple. He knows he can't win on the facts, so he's trying to drag me through the mud." "Exactly. And it gets worse." "How can it get worse?" Nicole slid a document across the desk. "They're also claiming that you've been hiding assets. Specifically, they're alleging that the inheritance you received from your mother in 2019 was improperly excluded from the marital estate. That money was mine. My mother left it to me, specifically. Derek never contributed a single dime to it. Under Georgia law, inheritances are generally considered separate property, but Derek's lawyers are arguing that because you deposited the money into a joint account even temporarily, it became commingled and is therefore subject to division. I felt sick. My mother had died 4 years ago, leaving me a modest sum that I had carefully invested for my retirement. The thought of Derek getting his hands on it made my blood boil. Can they do this? They can try, and honestly, the commingling argument has some merit. We'll need to trace every dollar of that inheritance to prove it remained your separate property. What about all the evidence we have against him? The affairs, the hidden accounts, the money he spent on his mistresses. Still valid, still damaging, but Derek's strategy is clear. He's trying to muddy the waters, make you look as bad as him, turn this into a he-said-she-said situation where both parties appear equally at fault. It's not equal. He's the one who cheated. He's the one who lied for years. I know, and we'll prove it. But I need you to understand what you're up against. Vincent Crawford is one of the best divorce attorneys in the state. He's going to use every trick in the book to protect Derek's assets. We need to be prepared for a long, ugly fight. I stared at the documents spread across Nicole's desk. Legal motions, financial statements, evidence files. My marriage had been reduced to paperwork, each page another wound in a relationship that had bled out long before I knew it was dying. What do I need to do? First, I need you to tell me everything about your relationship with Robert Chen. Every lunch, every late night, every conversation that could be misinterpreted. I need to know exactly what we're dealing with. I took a deep breath. Robert and I worked together for 6 years. He was my closest colleague and, yes, my friend. We had lunch together probably twice a week. We sometimes stayed late working on projects, but there was never anything romantic between us. Not once. He's married, happily married with 2 kids. The idea that we were having an affair is absurd. Did Derek ever express jealousy about your friendship with Robert? Sometimes. He would make comments about how much time we spent together. Ask why I needed to have lunch with another man when I had a husband at home. I always dismissed it as insecurity. But now you think it was projection. He was cheating on me. Of course he assumed I was doing the same thing. That's how guilty people think. Nicole nodded. We'll need Robert to provide a statement. His wife too, if possible. Character witnesses who can testify to the platonic nature of your relationship. I'll call him today. There's one more thing. Nicole hesitated, which was unlike her. Derek is also requesting that the divorce proceedings be made public. He's waiving his right to privacy. Why would he do that? Because he knows you value your privacy. He knows you don't want your personal life splashed across the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. He's betting that the threat of public humiliation will make you settle for less. I laughed. It came out harsh and bitter. He thinks I'm afraid of what people will say after everything he's done. He's counting on it. Then he's miscalculated. If he wants a public fight, I'll give him one. Let everyone see what kind of man he really is. Nicole smiled. It was the smile of a lawyer who had just been given permission to go nuclear. That's exactly what I was hoping you'd say. The next few weeks were a blur of depositions, document requests, and strategy sessions. I contacted Robert, who was horrified to learn he had been dragged into my divorce. His wife, Sandra, was even more outraged. That lying piece of garbage, Sandra said when I called to explain the situation. Robert told me years ago that Derek was bad news. Something about the way he talked about women at a company party. I should have said something to you then. You couldn't have known. Still, you've been dealing with this monster for years, and we never suspected. I'm so sorry, Maya. Both Robert and Sandra agreed to provide sworn statements attesting to the innocent nature of my friendship with Robert. Several other colleagues came forward as well, people who had witnessed our professional relationship and could testify that there had never been anything inappropriate between us. But Derek's lawyers weren't finished. They hired a private investigator to dig into my past, looking for anything that could be used against me. They subpoenaed my phone records, my emails, my text messages. They requested my medical records, my therapy notes, even my college transcripts. It was a fishing expedition designed to intimidate and exhaust. I refused to be intimidated. I refused to be exhausted. Every attack only strengthened my resolve. The first court hearing was scheduled for a Tuesday in early December. It was just a preliminary matter, a motion hearing to determine which evidence would be admissible at trial. But it would be the first time Derek and I had been in the same room since that night at Nicole's office. I barely slept the night before. I kept replaying conversations in my head, imagining what I would say if I had the chance to confront him. But Nicole had been clear. I was not to speak to Derek directly. Everything had to go through legal channels. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Wood paneling, fluorescent lights, an American flag hanging limply in the corner. Derek was already there when I arrived, seated at a table with Vincent Crawford and 2 junior associates. He looked different, thinner, older. The confident banker was nowhere to be seen. Our eyes met across the room. I expected to feel something, anger maybe, or sadness. But all I felt was empty. This man who had shared my bed for 28 years was now a stranger, worse than a stranger. A stranger hadn't promised to love me forever. The judge entered a stern-faced woman in her 60s named Catherine Williams. I had been told she was fair, but tough, with little patience for games or delays. "Let's get started," she said, reviewing the files in front of her. "This is a motion hearing in the matter of Thompson versus Thompson. Mr. Crawford, you filed the initial motion. Please proceed." Vincent Crawford rose to his feet. He was tall and silver-haired, with the polished manner of a man who had spent decades in courtrooms. "Your Honor, my client has been the victim of a coordinated campaign of harassment and defamation by his estranged wife and her attorney. Mrs. Thompson has made numerous false accusations regarding infidelity and financial impropriety. We are seeking to have this evidence excluded from the proceedings as it was obtained through illegal means, specifically through the unauthorized access of Mr. Thompson's personal electronic devices." Nicole stood immediately. "Objection, Your Honor. There was no unauthorized access. Mrs. Thompson had full knowledge of her husband's phone passcode, which he had voluntarily shared with her during their marriage. Furthermore, the evidence in question clearly demonstrates a pattern of marital misconduct that is directly relevant to the equitable distribution of assets." Judge Williams held up her hand. "One at a time, counselors. Mr. Crawford, what specifically are you claiming was illegally obtained?" "The text messages, Your Honor. Mrs. Thompson admits that she accessed Mr. Thompson's phone without his knowledge and sent a message impersonating him. This constitutes fraud and should invalidate any evidence derived from that action." "Your Honor," Nicole interjected, "Mr. Crawford is attempting to distract from the substance of the evidence by focusing on technicalities. The messages in question clearly show Mr. Thompson arranging a romantic liaison with a subordinate employee while his wife was supposedly absent from the home. The method of discovery does not change the fact of the infidelity." "Your Honor, we also have evidence suggesting that Mrs. Thompson herself engaged in an extramarital relationship with a colleague named Robert Chen." I felt my face flush with anger. Nicole put a hand on my arm, warning me to stay calm. "That allegation is completely unfounded," Nicole said. "We have sworn statements from Mr. Chen, his wife, and multiple colleagues attesting to the purely professional nature of their relationship. Mr. Crawford is engaging in exactly the kind of mudslinging we expected, attempting to portray my client as equally culpable when the evidence clearly shows otherwise." Judge Williams looked from one attorney to the other. "Let me be very clear about something. I have presided over hundreds of divorce cases in this court. I have seen every tactic imaginable. I do not look kindly on attempts to manipulate these proceedings through false accusations or character assassination. If either party is found to be presenting fabricated evidence or making allegations they know to be untrue, there will be serious consequences." She turned her attention to Derek. "Mr. Thompson, I have reviewed the financial documents submitted by both parties. I noticed some significant discrepancies. Can you explain why your disclosed assets differ so substantially from what appears in your tax returns from the past 3 years? Derek whispered something to Vincent Crawford, who stood to respond. Your Honor, my client has investments in various financial instruments that are complex in nature. Some assets may have been inadvertently omitted from the initial disclosure. We are prepared to submit amended documentation. Inadvertently omitted? Judge Williams repeated her tone, making clear what she thought of that excuse. Mr. Crawford, I'm going to give you and your client 1 week to submit a complete and accurate disclosure of all assets, including any offshore accounts, real estate holdings, or other investments that may have been inadvertently omitted from the original filing. Failure to do so will be considered contempt of court. I watched Derek's face as the judge spoke. He was trying to maintain his composure, but I could see the cracks forming. His hand trembled slightly as he reached for a glass of water. Now, Judge Williams continued, regarding the allegations of infidelity on both sides, Mrs. Thompson's counsel has submitted substantial documentary evidence, including text messages, credit card statements, and witness statements regarding Mr. Thompson's extramarital relationships. Mr. Crawford, I see your opposing motion, but I don't see any comparable evidence supporting your claims against Mrs. Thompson. We are still gathering evidence, Your Honor. We request additional time to complete our investigation. You've had 2 months. Either you have evidence or you don't. Making accusations without proof is not something I will tolerate in my courtroom. Nicole leaned forward. Your Honor, we believe the allegations against my client are a bad faith attempt to delay these proceedings and pressure her into an unfavorable settlement. We request that the court sanction Mr. Thompson and his counsel for filing a frivolous motion. I'm not prepared to rule on sanctions at this time, Judge Williams said, but I am putting both parties on notice. This divorce will proceed based on facts and evidence, not innuendo and speculation. The next hearing is scheduled for January 15th. At that time, I expect full financial disclosures from both parties, and I expect the allegations against Mrs. Thompson to either be substantiated with evidence or withdrawn. Is that understood? Both attorneys acknowledged the judge's order. As we filed out of the courtroom, I caught Derek staring at me. His expression was unreadable. Anger, regret, desperation. I couldn't tell anymore. I didn't care enough to try. Outside the courthouse, Nicole and I found a quiet bench away from the crowd. That went well, she said. Judge Williams isn't buying Derek's narrative. Did you see his face when she asked about the financial disclosures? He looked scared. He should be. That judge has a reputation for coming down hard on people who try to hide assets. If Derek doesn't come clean about everything in the next week, he's going to be in serious trouble. Do you think he'll do it? Come clean. Men like Derek never come completely clean. They always think they can get away with just a little more deception. But Judge Williams will see through it, and when she does, his credibility will be destroyed. I watched people entering and leaving the courthouse. Lawyers, clients, families torn apart by conflict and betrayal. I wondered how many of them had stood where I was standing, feeling the same mixture of exhaustion and determination. Nicole, do you think I'm doing the right thing, fighting this hard? She turned to look at me. What do you mean? I mean, sometimes I wonder if it would be easier to just take whatever settlement Derek offers and move on. End this. Stop the fighting. Easier, maybe, but would it be right? Would it be fair? I don't know anymore what's right or fair. I just know I'm tired. Nicole took my hand. Maya, listen to me. You are not just fighting for money or property. You are fighting for your dignity, for your self-respect, for the acknowledgement that what Derek did was wrong and that there are consequences for that kind of betrayal. If you give up now, if you let him bully you into accepting less than you deserve, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. Not because of the money, but because you'll know you let him win. But what if this destroys me? What if I spend so much energy on this fight that there's nothing left when it's over? Then we rebuild, together. That's what friends are for. I squeezed her hand, grateful beyond words for this woman who had stood by me through the worst period of my life. Okay, we keep fighting. That's my girl. The week that followed was one of the most intense of the entire divorce process. Derek's attorneys submitted amended financial disclosures that revealed what Nicole had suspected all along: hidden accounts in the Cayman Islands totaling nearly $200,000. A condominium in Miami purchased 3 years ago and never mentioned to me. stock options that had been exercised and the proceeds transferred to accounts I had never known existed. The scope of his deception was staggering. For years, while I had carefully managed our household budget, worrying about retirement savings and college funds and emergency expenses, Derek had been secretly building a shadow portfolio of wealth that was his alone. Nicole filed an emergency motion requesting that all newly disclosed assets be frozen pending the final divorce settlement. The judge granted it immediately, also ordering Derek to explain why these assets had been omitted from his original disclosure. Derek's explanation, delivered through his attorney, was that he had been planning these investments as a surprise retirement gift for both of us. He claimed he had always intended to reveal them when the time was right. Even his own lawyer seemed embarrassed by the lie. The walls were closing in on Derek, and he knew it. He started calling me again despite the legal prohibition on direct contact. The messages were different now, no longer apologetic or pleading. Now they were angry, accusatory, threatening. "You're going to regret this, Maya. Everything you're doing is going to come back to haunt you. When this is over, you'll have nothing but your pride and your empty apartment." I saved every message, every voicemail, every piece of evidence that showed the true nature of the man I had married. Christmas came and went, a strange and subdued affair. I spent it at Rachel's house in Charlotte, surrounded by my children and grandchildren. Derek was conspicuously absent, though the children told me he had called each of them separately, trying to explain his side of the story. "He says you're being unreasonable," Marcus told me on Christmas Eve. "He says you're trying to take everything he worked for." "And what do you think?" My son was quiet for a moment. "I think Dad made his choices. Now he has to live with them." Jennifer was less diplomatic. "He's trying to make himself the victim, as if cheating on you for years wasn't his fault somehow." I told him I didn't want to hear it. Rachel, my eldest, simply hugged me and said nothing. She didn't need to. Her presence, her support, her love, that was enough. The January hearing approached like a storm on the horizon. Nicole and I prepared obsessively, reviewing every document, anticipating every argument Derek's lawyers might make. We practiced my testimony over and over until I could recite the facts of my marriage and its dissolution without breaking down. The night before the hearing, I couldn't sleep. I sat in Nicole's guest room, the same room where I had spent my first night after leaving Derek, and thought about everything that had led me to this moment. 28 years of marriage, 3 children, countless holidays, birthdays, anniversaries, a lifetime of shared memories now tainted by the knowledge of what had been happening behind my back. I thought about the young woman I had been when I met Derek, ambitious, optimistic, full of faith in the future. I thought about all the compromises I had made, all the dreams I had deferred, all the pieces of myself I had sacrificed on the altar of our marriage. I thought about who I wanted to be when this was all over. Not a victim, not a bitter ex-wife, not someone defined by her husband's betrayal. I wanted to be Maya Richardson, just Maya, the woman I had been before I became Mrs. Derek Thompson, the woman I was only now beginning to rediscover. My phone buzzed, a text from Derek. "I know you think you're winning, but you've forgotten something important. I know all your secrets too, every single one." I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I deleted it and turned off my phone. Tomorrow would be the day of reckoning. Tomorrow, in that small courtroom with the fluorescent lights and the American flag, the truth would finally come out. And whatever secrets Derek thought he knew, I was ready to face them. I was ready to face anything. Because I had already survived the worst thing he could do to me. He had broken my trust. He had broken my heart. He had broken my faith in the life we had built together. But he had not broken me. And he never would. The morning of January 15th arrived cold and gray. I dressed carefully, choosing a navy blue suit that Nicole had helped me pick out. Professional. Dignified. The armor of a woman going to war. Nicole met me in the lobby of the courthouse with 2 cups of coffee and a thick folder of documents. "How are you feeling?" "Like I might throw up." "That's normal. Use it. Channel that nervous energy into focus." We entered the courtroom together. Derek was already there, sitting at the defense table with Vincent Crawford and his team. He looked worse than he had at the last hearing. His suit hung loosely on his frame, and there were deep shadows under his eyes. For a moment, I felt something that might have been pity. Then I remembered the text message from last night, the threat about my secrets, and the pity evaporated. Judge Williams entered precisely at 9 o'clock. She wasted no time on pleasantries. Before we proceed, I want to address the amended financial disclosures submitted by Mr. Thompson's counsel. Mr. Crawford, I have reviewed these documents carefully. I have also reviewed the original disclosures submitted at the beginning of these proceedings. The discrepancies are significant. Would you care to explain? Vincent Crawford stood adjusting his tie. Your Honor, as I mentioned previously, some assets were inadvertently omitted from the original filing. My client maintains that these were always intended to be part of the marital estate. Inadvertently omitted, Judge Williams repeated. Mr. Crawford, I have been a judge in this court for 15 years. I have seen many cases of inadvertent omission. This is not one of them. The pattern of concealment here is systematic and deliberate. Offshore accounts established years ago. Real estate purchases made without the knowledge or consent of the other spouse. Stock options exercised and proceeds transferred to hidden accounts. This is not inadvertence. This is fraud. Derek leaned over to whisper something to his attorney. Crawford held up a hand, silencing him. Your Honor, we request the opportunity to present evidence that will contextualize these financial matters. You will have that opportunity, but I want to be clear about something. If I determine that Mr. Thompson deliberately concealed assets from this court and from his spouse, there will be consequences. Serious consequences. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor. Judge Williams turned to Nicole. Ms. Harris, please present your case. Nicole stood and walked to the center of the courtroom. She moved with the confidence of a woman who knew she had the facts on her side. Your Honor, what we have here is a textbook case of marital fraud. Over the course of their 28-year marriage, Mr. Thompson systematically deceived his wife regarding the true extent of their marital assets. He established offshore accounts without her knowledge. He purchased real estate in his name alone. He exercised stock options and hid the proceeds, all while Mrs. Thompson managed the household finances, carefully budgeting their disclosed income, never suspecting that her husband was secretly building a shadow portfolio of wealth. Nicole pulled a document from her folder and handed it to the judge. This is a timeline of Mr. Thompson's financial deceptions, compiled from bank records, tax returns, and other documentary evidence. It shows a pattern of concealment dating back at least 7 years. During this same period, Mr. Thompson was also engaged in multiple extramarital affairs, spending significant sums on hotels, gifts, and travel for his mistresses. Objection, Crawford interjected. The alleged affairs are not relevant to the financial matters before this court. On the contrary, Nicole responded, the affairs are directly relevant because they demonstrate a pattern of deception. A man who lies to his wife about his relationships is also likely to lie about his finances. Moreover, the money spent on these affairs came from marital funds that should have been used for the benefit of both spouses. Judge Williams nodded. I'll allow it. Continue, Ms. Harris. Thank you, Your Honor. We have documented over $40,000 in expenditures related to Mr. Thompson's extramarital activities. Hotel rooms, jewelry, flights, dinners, all paid for with money that belonged equally to Mrs. Thompson. When you add this to the hidden assets we've uncovered, the total amount concealed from my client exceeds $300,000. I watched Derek's face as Nicole laid out the evidence. He was trying to maintain his composure, but I could see the panic in his eyes. His carefully constructed facade was crumbling, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. Furthermore, Nicole continued, we have evidence that Mr. Thompson attempted to intimidate my client into accepting an unfavorable settlement. He has made numerous direct contacts despite court orders prohibiting such communication. He has threatened to reveal alleged secrets about my client's past, and he has made false accusations of infidelity against my client, accusations which have been thoroughly debunked by multiple witnesses. She handed another document to the judge. This is a compilation of text messages sent by Mr. Thompson to my client over the past 2 months. I direct Your Honor's attention to the messages dated December 24th and January 14th, in which Mr. Thompson explicitly threatens my client with exposure of unspecified secrets. Judge Williams read the messages, her expression hardening. Mr. Thompson, is this your phone number? Derek stood reluctantly. Yes, Your Honor. And did you send these messages? A long pause. Yes. Despite the court's order prohibiting direct contact with your wife. Another pause. I was upset. I wasn't thinking clearly. You weren't thinking clearly. Mr. Thompson, let me explain something to you. When I issue an order, I expect it to be followed. When you ignore my orders, you are not just violating court procedure. You are demonstrating contempt for this court and for the legal process. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor. I hope so, because if I see any further violations, you will be held in contempt and face appropriate sanctions. Now sit down. Derek sat. I could see his hands shaking. Nicole pressed forward. Your Honor, based on the evidence presented, we are requesting that the court award my client 70% of all marital assets, including the previously hidden accounts and properties. We are also requesting spousal support in the amount of $5,000 per month for a period of 10 years, given the significant disparity in earning potential between the parties and Mr. Thompson's documented pattern of financial deception. That's outrageous, Crawford objected. My client has worked for 30 years to build his career. Mrs. Thompson cannot simply walk away with 70% of everything he's earned. Everything he's earned. Nicole's voice was sharp. Mrs. Thompson contributed equally to this marriage. She sacrificed career opportunities to support her husband's advancement. She raised 3 children virtually alone while Mr. Thompson was building his career and apparently pursuing other women. She managed the household with skill and dedication, never knowing that her husband was stealing from their shared future. To suggest that Mr. Thompson alone earned these assets is an insult to every woman who has ever supported a spouse through decades of marriage. Your Honor. Crawford tried again. We request the opportunity to cross-examine Mrs. Thompson regarding her own contributions to the marriage and her knowledge of the family finances. Judge Williams considered this. Granted. Mrs. Thompson, please take the stand. My heart was pounding as I walked to the witness chair. Nicole gave me an encouraging nod. I sat down and placed my hands in my lap, trying to stop them from trembling. Crawford approached me with a predatory smile. Mrs. Thompson, how long were you married to my client? 28 years. And during that time, were you aware of your husband's financial activities? I was aware of what he told me. I managed our household budget based on the income he disclosed. But you never thought to question whether there might be additional assets. Never thought to look more closely at his financial records. I trusted my husband. I believed he was being honest with me. You trusted him. And yet, according to your own testimony, you accessed his phone without his knowledge and sent a message impersonating him. Does that sound like trust to you? Nicole stood. Objection. Counsel is badgering the witness. Overruled. The witness may answer. I took a breath. I accessed his phone because I saw a message from another woman saying she missed him. After 28 years of trust, I had earned the right to know if my husband was betraying me. But you didn't just look at the messages, did you? You sent a message pretending to be him. You invited his alleged mistress to your home. You set a trap. I wanted the truth. I wanted to see with my own eyes whether my husband was cheating on me. And when you discovered the truth, you immediately began gathering evidence for divorce. You contacted a lawyer. You started planning how to take as much of my client's money as possible. I contacted a lawyer because I needed legal advice. I was a woman whose entire world had just collapsed. What was I supposed to do? Crawford leaned closer. I'll tell you what you were supposed to do, Mrs. Thompson. You were supposed to talk to your husband. You were supposed to give him a chance to explain. Instead, you ambushed him. You humiliated him in front of his colleague. And then you set out to destroy his career and his reputation. I didn't destroy anything. He destroyed it himself when he chose to break his marriage vows, when he chose to lie to me for years, when he chose to hide money that belonged to both of us. Speaking of choices, Mrs. Thompson, let's talk about Robert Chen. I felt my stomach clench. Here it was, the attack I had been dreading. Robert Chen was your colleague at work, correct?
Yes. And you had a close relationship with him. We were friends, professional colleagues who became friends. You had lunch together frequently. Yes. You stayed late at the office together, sometimes when we were working on projects. You exchanged personal emails and text messages. We were friends. Friends communicate. Mrs. Thompson, I have here a series of text messages between you and Robert Chen. Crawford held up a sheet of paper. In one of these messages, you write, and I quote, "I wish Derek understood me the way you do." In another, you write, "Sometimes I wonder what my life would be like if I had met you first." These don't sound like the words of a purely professional colleague, do they? I felt the blood drain from my face. I had forgotten about those messages.
They were from years ago during a particularly difficult period in my marriage when Derek was working constantly and I was feeling neglected. Robert had been a sympathetic ear, nothing more. Those messages were taken out of context. Out of context, please enlighten us. What context makes, "I wonder what my life would be like if I had met you first," sound professional? I was going through a hard time. Robert was a friend I could talk to, but there was never anything physical between us, never anything romantic. Those messages were the frustrated venting of a lonely woman, nothing more. A lonely woman who was married to my client. A woman who apparently had emotional needs that her husband wasn't meeting. A woman who turned to another man for comfort. Nicole stood again. "Your Honor, this is exactly the kind of character assassination we warned about. Counsel is trying to create a false equivalence between a few frustrated text messages and Mr. Thompson's documented pattern of multiple sexual affairs over many years." "I'm inclined to agree," Judge Williams said. "Mr. Crawford, do you have any evidence that Mrs. Thompson's relationship with Robert Chen was physical in nature?" "We have the messages, Your Honor." Messages expressing emotional frustration are not evidence of infidelity. If feeling frustrated in a marriage were grounds for divorce, every couple in America would be in this courtroom. "Move on." Crawford's jaw tightened, but he complied. "Mrs. Thompson, let's discuss your mother's inheritance." "What about it?" "You received approximately $150,000 when your mother passed away in 2019, correct?" "Yes." "And you deposited this money into a joint account shared with my client?" "Temporarily, while I decided how to invest it. But during that time, the funds were commingled with marital assets. They were in a joint account for approximately 3 weeks. Then I transferred them to a separate investment account in my name alone. But for those 3 weeks, the money was legally part of the marital estate." Nicole interrupted. "Your Honor, Georgia law is clear on this point. An inheritance remains separate property as long as the inheriting spouse can trace the funds. My client has documentation showing the exact path of that money from her mother's estate to her personal investment account. The brief period in a joint account does not convert separate property to marital property." "I'm familiar with the law, Ms. Harris. Mr. Crawford, unless you have evidence that the inheritance funds were used for marital expenses during those 3 weeks, I'm not inclined to consider them part of the marital estate." Crawford paused, flipping through his notes. It was clear he had been counting on this argument and had nothing else to support it. No further questions for this witness. I returned to my seat, my legs unsteady. Nicole squeezed my arm. "You did great." The hearing continued for another 2 hours. Nicole called witnesses to testify about Derek's affairs, including a hotel manager who confirmed he had been a frequent guest with various female companions over the years. She presented expert testimony from a forensic accountant who detailed exactly how Derek had hidden assets and estimated the true value of the marital estate. By the time Judge Williams called a recess for lunch, the picture was clear. Derek Thompson was not just an unfaithful husband. He was a liar, a cheat, and a fraud who had systematically deceived his wife for years. During the break, I sat with Nicole in a small conference room, unable to eat the sandwich she had brought. "What happens now? The judge will review all the evidence and make a ruling. Based on what I saw today, I think we're in a very strong position." Crawford really went after me with those messages to Robert. He tried, but the judge saw through it. A few frustrated texts from years ago don't compare to what Derek did. Everyone in that courtroom knows it. I had forgotten about those messages. When Crawford read them aloud, I felt like I had been caught doing something wrong. You didn't do anything wrong, Maya. You were unhappy in your marriage and you confided in a friend. That's human. That's normal. Derek, on the other hand, conducted multiple sexual affairs over years while lying to your face. There's no comparison. When we returned to the courtroom, Judge Williams wasted no time. I have reviewed all the evidence presented today as well as the documentation submitted previously. I am prepared to issue a preliminary ruling on the division of assets. The room went silent. First, regarding Mr. Thompson's concealed assets. The evidence clearly shows a deliberate and systematic pattern of financial deception. Mr. Thompson established offshore accounts, purchased real estate, and exercised stock options without the knowledge or consent of his wife. He then attempted to hide these assets from this court. This behavior is not only grounds for an unequal division of property, it constitutes fraud upon the court. Derek's face went white. Second, regarding the allegations of infidelity. The evidence overwhelmingly supports Mrs. Thompson's claims that her husband engaged in multiple extramarital affairs over an extended period. The allegations against Mrs. Thompson, by contrast, are unsupported by any credible evidence. I find that Mr. Thompson was the sole party responsible for the breakdown of this marriage. Third, regarding the division of assets. Given Mr. Thompson's documented pattern of deception and infidelity, I am ordering that the marital estate be divided 65% to Mrs. Thompson and 35% to Mr. Thompson. This includes all previously disclosed assets, as well as the hidden accounts and properties uncovered during these proceedings. I heard Derek make a sound, something between a gasp and a groan. Fourth, regarding spousal support. Given the significant disparity in the parties' earning potential and Mr. Thompson's demonstrated ability to accumulate wealth through means not shared with his spouse, I am ordering Mr. Thompson to pay spousal support in the amount of $4,000 per month for a period of 8 years. Your Honor. Crawford started to rise, but Judge Williams cut him off. I'm not finished, Mr. Crawford. Fifth, regarding Mr. Thompson's violations of this court's orders. Mr. Thompson repeatedly contacted his wife directly, despite explicit instructions not to do so. He threatened her with exposure of alleged secrets. He attempted to intimidate her into accepting an unfavorable settlement. For these violations, I am ordering Mr. Thompson to pay Mrs. Thompson's legal fees in full. The room erupted. Derek was on his feet, shouting at his attorney. Crawford was trying to calm him down. Nicole was gripping my hand, a triumphant smile on her face. Order! Judge Williams commanded, banging her gavel. Mr. Thompson, sit down immediately, or I will have you removed from this courtroom. Derek sat, but his face was contorted with rage. He looked at me across the room, and in his eyes I saw something I had never seen before. Pure hatred. This ruling is preliminary, Judge Williams continued. Final divorce proceedings will be scheduled for March. Between now and then, both parties are expected to comply with all court orders. Any further violations will result in additional sanctions. This hearing is adjourned. As the judge left the bench, Derek stood and pointed at me. This isn't over, Maya. You think you've won, but this isn't over. I'll appeal. I'll fight this all the way to the Supreme Court if I have to. You're not going to take everything I've worked for. Mr. Thompson! Crawford grabbed his arm. Stop talking, now! But Derek shook him off. 28 years I took care of you. 28 years I provided for you and our children. And this is how you repay me, by destroying me. I stood and faced my husband for what I knew would be one of the last times. You destroyed yourself, Derek. Every lie you told, every woman you slept with, every dollar you hid, those were your choices. I'm just making sure there are consequences. Consequences. You want to talk about consequences. Wait until our children find out what kind of mother they really have. Wait until everyone knows about your little emotional affair with Robert. Our children already know everything. They know about your affairs. They know about your lies. They know about the money you stole from our marriage, and they've chosen to stand by me. Because unlike you, they understand what loyalty means. Derek's face crumpled. For a moment, he looked like the man I had married, vulnerable and lost. Then the mask slammed back into place. This isn't over, he repeated. but his voice had lost its edge. "Yes, Derek, it is." I turned and walked out of the courtroom with Nicole beside me. Behind me, I could hear Derek's voice still arguing with his attorney, still refusing to accept what had happened. But I didn't look back. Outside, the January air was cold and clean. I breathed deeply, feeling something I hadn't felt in months: peace. "You did it," Nicole said. "You actually did it." "We did it. I couldn't have gotten through this without you. That's what friends are for." She hugged me tightly. "Now what do you want to do to celebrate?" I thought about it. All the months of stress and fear and anger, all the sleepless nights and tearful phone calls, all the times I had wondered if I was making a mistake, if I should just accept Derek's apologies and try to rebuild. "I want to go home," I said. "My new home. I want to pour myself a glass of wine and sit on my balcony and watch the sunset. And I want to remember what it feels like to be free." Nicole smiled. "That sounds perfect." As we walked to her car, my phone buzzed. A text from Rachel. "Mom just heard from Dad. He's devastated. I know I should feel sorry for him, but I don't. I'm just proud of you. Call me when you can." I smiled and typed back a response. "I love you, sweetheart. I'll call tonight." Another message came through, this one from Marcus. "Dad called me screaming about the hearing. I hung up on him. Whatever happened, I'm on your side. Always." And then Jennifer. "Mom, you're my hero. Seriously. When I grow up, I want to be as brave as you." I stood there in the parking lot, tears streaming down my face, reading messages from my children. These 3 people I had raised, sacrificed for, loved with every fiber of my being. They were my real legacy. Not the money or the property or the court victories. Them. "You okay?" Nicole asked. "More than okay. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." We drove through the Atlanta streets as the sun began its descent toward the horizon. The city looked different to me now, brighter somehow, full of possibility. I was 55 years old, my marriage was over, half my life was behind me. But the other half was still ahead, and for the first time in longer than I could remember, I was looking forward to it. The weeks following the January hearing passed in a blur of paperwork and phone calls. Derek's appeal was denied almost immediately. Judge Williams had been thorough in her ruling, leaving no room for legal challenges. Vincent Crawford, perhaps sensing that his client's case was hopeless, began pushing for a settlement. Nicole called me on a Tuesday evening with the news. "They want to negotiate." Crawford reached out this afternoon. "Derek is willing to accept the court's division of assets if you'll agree to reduce the spousal support period from 8 years to 5. I considered this. 3 years of payments versus the uncertainty of continued legal battles. What do you think? Honestly, I think Derek is running out of money to fight this. His legal fees have been astronomical. He's had to liquidate some of his hidden assets just to pay Crawford. If we hold firm, I think he'll eventually accept the original terms." "How long would that take?" "Could be months, maybe a year. These things drag on." I thought about another year of court appearances and depositions and sleepless nights, another year of seeing Derek's face across a courtroom, another year of being defined by this divorce instead of moving forward with my life. "Counteroffer," I said. "I'll accept 6 years of spousal support instead of 8, but the asset division stays exactly as Judge Williams ordered. And Derek pays all remaining legal fees, not just the ones from the violations." Nicole laughed. "I knew there was a reason I liked you. I'll call Crawford in the morning." The negotiation took another 3 weeks, but in the end, Derek agreed to my terms. I think he was as exhausted as I was. The man who had once threatened to fight all the way to the Supreme Court had been reduced to accepting whatever crumbs he could salvage. The final divorce hearing was scheduled for March 15th. The irony of the date was not lost on me. The Ides of March, the day Julius Caesar was betrayed by those closest to him. Now it would be the day my marriage officially died. I woke that morning feeling strangely calm. For months I had dreaded this moment, the official end of 28 years, the legal confirmation that everything I had built my life around was gone. But now that it was here, I felt only relief. I dressed in a simple black dress, not mourning clothes, but something elegant and understated. This was a funeral of sorts, but I was not the one being buried. Nicole picked me up at 9. She was wearing her power suit, the same navy blazer she had worn to every court appearance, her warrior armor. Ready, more than ready. The courtroom was nearly empty. Just Derek Crawford, Nicole, me, and a court clerk. No family, no witnesses, no spectators. The death of a marriage witnessed by strangers. Derek looked diminished. He had lost more weight since January, and his expensive suit hung on his frame like borrowed clothes. When he saw me enter, something flickered across his face: regret, shame, or maybe just the exhaustion of a man who had finally been forced to confront the consequences of his choices. Judge Williams entered and took her seat. She reviewed the settlement agreement, asked both parties to confirm their acceptance of the terms, and then with a simple stroke of her pen, ended my marriage. The divorce is granted. The settlement agreement is hereby entered into the record. This case is closed. That was it. No fanfare, no dramatic speeches, just a signature on a piece of paper, and 28 years dissolved like morning fog. I walked out of the courthouse into the bright March sunshine. Nicole was beside me already on her phone, scheduling her next appointment. Life goes on, even when your world has ended. Maya. I turned. Derek was standing at the top of the courthouse steps, alone. Crawford had already disappeared, probably eager to escape his failed client. Can we talk just for a minute? I looked at Nicole. She shrugged. Your call. Go ahead, I told her. I'll catch up. Nicole hesitated, then nodded and walked toward her car. I climbed the steps until I was standing face to face with the man I had spent most of my adult life loving. What do you want, Derek? He was quiet for a long moment, staring at his shoes like a child caught misbehaving. I wanted to say I'm sorry, really sorry. Not because I got caught, not because of the money or the court or any of that. I'm sorry because I hurt you. I hurt the person who loved me more than anyone else in the world, and I did it over and over again for years, and I can never take that back. I studied his face, looking for the manipulation I had come to expect, but all I saw was a broken man older than his years, stripped of everything that had once made him feel powerful. Why Derek? That's the one thing I still don't understand. Why wasn't I enough? He shook his head slowly. You were always enough. More than enough. The problem wasn't you, Maya. It was me. I was always chasing something. More money, more success, more validation, and somewhere along the way that turned into chasing other women. Not because they gave me something you couldn't, but because they made me feel like I was still young, still desirable, still the man I used to be instead of the man I was becoming. So I was supposed to just accept being cheated on because you were having a midlife crisis. No, you were supposed to leave me. Years ago, you were supposed to see what I was and walk away. But you didn't, because you trusted me. And I took advantage of that trust every single day. A tear slid down his cheek. I had seen Derek cry before, but always strategically, always to get something he wanted. This was different. This was grief. I loved you, he said. I know you don't believe that anymore. I know I destroyed any chance of you ever believing it again. But I did love you, Maya. In my own broken, selfish way, I loved you. Love isn't supposed to hurt like this. I know, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry for all of it. We stood there in silence, two people who had shared a life now standing on opposite sides of an unbridgeable divide. What are you going to do now? I finally asked. I don't know. Try to rebuild, I guess. Find a new job, a new apartment, a new life. He laughed bitterly. Start over at 58. Sounds exciting, doesn't it? It can be. Starting over isn't a punishment, Derek. It's an opportunity. Is that what it is for you? An opportunity? I thought about the question. The new apartment I had found. The promotion I had received at work. The friendships I had rekindled. The relationship with my children that had only grown stronger through this ordeal. Yes, I said, that's exactly what it is. Derek nodded. I hope you find what you're looking for, Maya. I really do. Goodbye, Derek. I walked down the steps and across the parking lot to where Nicole was waiting. I didn't look back. There was nothing left to see. The months that followed were a time of quiet transformation. I moved into my new apartment, a cozy 2-bedroom in a tree-lined neighborhood in Decatur. It was smaller than the Buckhead house, but it felt more like home than that place ever had. Every piece of furniture, every decoration, every color on the walls was something I had chosen for myself. I threw myself into my work, earning the promotion to senior vice president that I had been passed over for years ago when I chose to support Derek's career instead of my own. My colleagues welcomed me with open arms, and I discovered that I was actually good at leadership in a way I had never had the chance to prove before. Rachel came to visit in April, bringing her husband and my 2 grandchildren. We spent a weekend cooking together, playing board games, taking walks in the spring sunshine. On their last night, Rachel and I sat on my balcony while the kids slept inside. "You seem different, Mom." "Different how?" "Lighter, like you've set down something heavy you've been carrying for a long time." I smiled. "I think I have. I'm proud of you. I know I've said it before, but I really am. What you went through, how you handled it, the way you fought for yourself, it taught me something." "What's that?" "That it's never too late to choose yourself. That you don't have to stay in a situation that's hurting you just because it's familiar. That being alone is better than being with someone who doesn't deserve you." I reached over and took my daughter's hand. "You have no idea how much that means to me." "Can I ask you something?" "Anything." "Do you regret it?" "Any of it. The marriage, I mean. All those years with Dad." I thought carefully before answering. "I regret the lies. I regret the betrayal. I regret all the years I wasted not knowing the truth. But I don't regret the marriage itself, because that marriage gave me you and Marcus and Jennifer. It gave me a family. It gave me purpose. And even though it ended badly, it taught me things about myself that I never would have learned otherwise." "Like what?" "Like how strong I am. Like how much I can survive. Like the fact that I don't need anyone else to complete me. I spent 28 years thinking I was half of a whole. Turns out I was whole all along. I just forgot for a while." Rachel leaned over and rested her head on my shoulder. "I love you, Mom." "I love you too, sweetheart." Summer arrived hot and humid, as only Georgia summers can be. I spent my weekends exploring the city I had lived in for decades, but never really seen. I discovered coffee shops and bookstores and hiking trails I had never known existed. I took a pottery class and discovered I was terrible at it. I tried yoga and found that I actually liked it. I was 55 years old and learning new things about myself every day. In July, I received an unexpected email. It was from Jasmine Cole. "Mrs. Thompson, I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from, but I wanted you to know that I've been following your story through mutual acquaintances, and I'm so glad things worked out for you. Your strength through all of this has inspired me to make changes in my own life. I've left Atlanta and started over in a new city with a new job and a new perspective. I'm not proud of what I did, but I'm trying to be someone I can be proud of going forward. I don't expect your forgiveness, but I wanted you to know that your example has made a difference. Wishing you all the best, Jasmine." I read the email 3 times before deciding how to respond. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Part of me wanted to write back something cutting and cruel. But in the end, I chose a different path. "Jasmine, thank you for reaching out. The past is the past, and I've made my peace with it. I hope you find the happiness you're looking for. Good luck with your new beginning. Maya." I hit send before I could change my mind. Forgiveness, I was learning, was not about the other person. It was about freeing yourself from the weight of anger and resentment. Jasmine had made her choices, and she would live with the consequences, but I didn't have to carry her sins alongside my own. Nicole invited me to dinner in August to celebrate the 6-month anniversary of my divorce. We went to a fancy restaurant downtown, the kind of place Derek used to take his clients. I had never been there before. Now I was here with my best friend, toasting to my freedom. "To new beginnings," Nicole said, raising her glass. "To new beginnings." We drank. The wine was excellent, far better than anything Derek had ever ordered. "So," Nicole said, setting down her glass, "what's next for Maya Richardson?" I'm not sure. For the first time in my life, I don't have a plan. No husband to support, no children to raise, no one depending on me for anything. I can do whatever I want. And what do you want? I considered the question. It was strange how rarely I had asked myself that over the years. What do I want? Not, what does Derek want? Not, what do the children need? Not, what does the company expect? Just me. What do I want? I want to travel, I said. I've always wanted to see Europe. Paris, Rome, Barcelona. Derek always said we'd go someday, but someday never came. Now I can go whenever I want. Then go. What's stopping you? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Nicole smiled. That's the right answer. In September, I booked a 3-week trip to Europe. Paris for a week, Rome for a week, Barcelona for a week. I would go alone, something I had never done in my life. The thought was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. Before I left, I visited Derek one last time. He had moved into a small apartment near his old office, a far cry from the Buckhead mansion we had once shared. He opened the door looking tired, but somehow more at peace than I had seen him in years. Maya, this is unexpected. I'm leaving for Europe tomorrow, 3 weeks. I wanted to say goodbye before I left. Goodbye? That sounds permanent? Not goodbye forever, just goodbye to this chapter. I spent so many years being angry at you, Derek, angry and hurt and confused, but I don't want to carry that with me anymore, so I'm leaving it here, with you, where it belongs. He leaned against the doorframe, studying my face. You look good, Maya. Happy. I am happy, for the first time in a long time. I'm glad. Really, I am. He paused. I've been doing some thinking, too. Seeing a therapist, actually. Trying to figure out why I did what I did. Why I threw away the best thing that ever happened to me. Have you figured it out? Some of it. Turns out I have a lot of issues I never dealt with. Stuff from my childhood, from my parents, from growing up poor, and always feeling like I had to prove something. It doesn't excuse what I did. Nothing excuses it. But at least now I understand it a little better. I hope you find what you're looking for, Derek. You too, Maya. We stood there for a moment, two people who had once promised to love each other forever, now standing on opposite sides of a doorway. Take care of yourself, I said. You too. I turned and walked away. This time I didn't feel the need to look back. Europe was everything I had dreamed, and more. In Paris, I wandered the Louvre for hours, marveling at art I had only ever seen in books. I ate croissants in sidewalk cafes and watched the sunset from the steps of Sacré-Cœur. In Rome, I threw a coin in the Trevi fountain and explored ancient ruins that made my own history seem small and recent. In Barcelona, I danced at a flamenco show and tasted wines I couldn't pronounce. But the best part wasn't the sights or the food or the experiences. It was the freedom, the absolute intoxicating freedom of being alone with myself, answerable to no one, responsible only for my own happiness. On my last night in Barcelona, I sat on the balcony of my hotel room, watching the lights of the city twinkle below. My phone buzzed with a message from Jennifer. Mom, how's the trip? We miss you. I typed back, It's wonderful, baby. I wish you could see this view. I'll tell you all about it when I get home. Another message came through, this one from Marcus. Dad called today, said he's doing better, going to AA meetings and everything. Thought you should know. I stared at the message for a long moment. Part of me was skeptical. Derek had made promises before, but another part of me, the part that had spent 28 years loving him despite everything, felt a flicker of hope. Not for reconciliation, that ship had sailed long ago, but hope that maybe he could find his own path to redemption. I'm glad, I typed back. Everyone deserves a second chance. When I returned to Atlanta, the autumn leaves were just beginning to turn. My apartment felt different somehow. Smaller, but also more welcoming. Home. Nicole met me for coffee the day after I got back. So, how was it? Tell me everything. I spent an hour describing my adventures, showing her photos, recounting stories of kind strangers and unexpected discoveries. She listened with wide eyes, occasionally interrupting to ask questions or make comments. You're glowing. she said when I finally ran out of words. Seriously, Maya, you look 10 years younger. I feel 10 years younger, or maybe just 10 years wiser. What's next? Another trip, a new hobby, a torrid affair with a mysterious European stranger? I laughed. I don't know. For now, I'm just enjoying being home, being me, without all the baggage I was carrying before. Speaking of baggage, Nicole said, her tone shifting, I heard through the grapevine that Derek's been telling people he wants to reach out to you, apologize again, maybe try to be friends. Friends. I know, ridiculous. Right after everything he put you through. I thought about it. A year ago, the idea would have seemed impossible. 6 months ago, it would have made me angry. But now, maybe not ridiculous, I said slowly. Maybe just complicated. You're not seriously considering it. Not being friends exactly, but maybe being civil, being able to be in the same room at family events without wanting to kill each other, for the kids' sake, if nothing else. Nicole shook her head. You're a better person than I am, Maya Richardson. No, I'm just tired of being angry. It takes too much energy. Energy I'd rather spend on things that matter. The holidays arrived, bringing with them a flurry of family gatherings. For the first time in 28 years, Derek and I were not together for Thanksgiving or Christmas. I spent Thanksgiving with Rachel's family in Charlotte, surrounded by grandchildren and football and pumpkin pie. Christmas was at my apartment. All 3 of my children gathered around my small table eating the ham I had learned to cook from watching YouTube videos. Mom, this is actually really good, Marcus said, sounding surprised. Don't sound so shocked. I've learned a few things this year. More than a few, Jennifer added. You've basically become a whole new person. Not new, I corrected her. Just finally becoming who I was always supposed to be. After dinner, we gathered in my small living room to exchange gifts. The tree I had decorated myself twinkled in the corner, smaller than the massive productions Derek used to insist on, but somehow more beautiful for its simplicity. Rachel handed me a small wrapped box. This is from all of us. I opened it to find a delicate gold bracelet with 3 charms, a heart, a star, and an infinity symbol. The heart is for love, Rachel explained. The star is for hope, and the infinity symbol is for forever, because no matter what happens, we'll always be your children, and we'll always love you. I couldn't speak. The tears were flowing too freely. I just held the bracelet to my chest and let my children wrap their arms around me. Later that night, after everyone had gone to bed, I sat alone on my balcony, looking out at the city lights. The bracelet glittered on my wrist, catching the glow of the Christmas lights strung on my neighbor's balcony. 1 year ago, I had been a woman whose world was crumbling. A woman betrayed by the person she trusted most. A woman facing the terrifying prospect of starting over at 55. Now I was something else entirely. A survivor. A warrior. A woman who had walked through fire and emerged stronger on the other side. My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. I almost didn't read it, assuming it was spam, but curiosity got the better of me. Mrs. Thompson, you don't know me, but I read your story on a women's forum. Your friend shared it anonymously to help other women going through similar situations. I wanted to thank you. I've been in a bad marriage for 15 years, afraid to leave because I didn't think I could make it on my own. Your story showed me that it's possible, that there's life after betrayal, that we don't have to stay in situations that destroy us just because we're afraid of being alone. I filed for divorce last week. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, but also the most liberating. Thank you for your courage. It gave me courage, too. I read the message 3 times, tears streaming down my face. Then I typed a response. Dear friend, thank you for sharing this with me. Your strength is your own, not borrowed from me. But if my story helped even a little, then everything I went through was worth it. Good luck on your journey. You're going to be okay. Better than okay. You're going to be amazing. I hit send and set down my phone. Nicole had been right all those months ago. My pain hadn't been entirely useless. It had become something larger than myself. A beacon for other women navigating the same dark waters I had crossed. I stood up and leaned against the balcony railing, breathing in the cool December air. The city stretched out before me, millions of lights representing millions of lives, each one with its own story of love and loss and redemption. My story was just one among many, but it was mine. And for the first time in longer than I could remember, I was proud of who I had become. I am Maya Richardson, 56 years old now, divorced, single, independent. I have loved deeply and been betrayed terribly. I have fallen and risen and fallen again. I have learned that strength is not the absence of pain, but the ability to keep moving forward despite it. I have 3 children who love me, friends who support me, a career that fulfills me, a life that is entirely my own. My husband was cooking dinner when his coworker texted him, "I miss you." I replied for him and invited her over. That single moment of instinctive courage, of refusal to be deceived any longer, changed the entire trajectory of my life. Some people might say I acted rashly, that I should have waited, gathered more evidence, prepared myself better before confronting the truth. But I know now that there is no perfect time to face betrayal. There is only the moment when you decide you deserve better. I decided I deserved better, and then I fought for it. If you're listening to my story and seeing yourself in my words, if you're sitting in a marriage that hurts you with a partner who doesn't honor you, wondering if you're strong enough to walk away, let me tell you something. You are strong enough. You are brave enough. You are worthy of a love that doesn't lie to you, doesn't betray you, doesn't make you feel small and invisible. You deserve to be chosen every single day, not just when it's convenient, not just when no one better comes along, but always, completely, without reservation. And if the person you're with can't give you that, then you deserve to walk away. No matter how long you've been together, no matter how much you've invested, no matter how scary the unknown seems, the unknown is where life begins. The unknown is where we find out who we really are. I found out who I really am, and I like her. I'm proud of her. I'm grateful for her. This is not the end of my story. There are more chapters to be written, more adventures to be had, more lessons to be learned. But for now, in this moment, I am content. I am Maya Richardson. I am 56 years old. I am exactly where I am meant to be, and that is more than enough.